Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. I'm back. I had to step away for a few months. I will not bore you with the details, but life was lifing and I had zero time to go to the theater and see anything. So it was not a very spooky filled fall for me. I did get to see John Carpenter live and in person. That was fun. I have been slowly catching up the last several weeks on a few films and TV shows that I've missed out on, and I thought I would come on here and talk about them. What have you been enjoying this fall? For this video, there are a few films that I did not see just because I didn't have that much interest in them. Like, I did not see The Conjuring Last Rites. I haven't really enjoyed a Conjuring movie since like maybe the first two, and I don't really care about the Warrens that much. Sorry. The Black Phone 2 just seemed like the most unnecessary sequel of all time. And what I heard about the film after its release hasn't really done much to pique my interest and want to go out and see it. The Strangers Chapter 2, just no. And there are still films that I want to see. I just haven't gotten around to them yet, like the new Predator film. That seemed to get a lot of good buzz. People seem to really enjoy that. I also wanted to see the new Oz Perkins film, Keeper. That didn't seem to get that good reviews and didn't seem to do well at the box office and just kind of disappeared. If any of these films I've mentioned are actually worth checking out, let me know. But otherwise, we will get to the films and TV shows that I have watched. I will likely be getting into spoilers for a lot of these titles that I'm going to talk about. I will leave timestamps down below so you can see when I'm talking about a particular film if there's something that you haven't seen yet and you don't want it spoiled. But yeah, otherwise, let's talk about some horror. I'm so excited to be back and doing this. I guess we'll start off by talking about some Shudder originals. And the first one I'm going to talk about is The Ugly Stepsister. I had so many people being like, you've got to watch this film. You'll love it. This is the film that's going to restore your faith in the horror genre. I don't know if it quite lived up to that hype. It's definitely a good movie. I definitely had a lot of fun with it. And as far as like this new trend that we're seeing where you're having fairy tales and childhood property that are now getting turned into horror films and horror franchises, I feel like this is probably one of the better ones. I feel like with The Ugly Stepsister, why it works is that it just feels very much in line with the original Grimm fairy tales, which were very horrific and very violent. I know a lot of people have been calling this film like this year's The Substance, and sure, it's definitely dealing with similar themes in terms of women having to live up to these very high beauty standards, and if they do not reach those standards, if they are not considered beautiful within the male gaze, they don't get the same kind of social acceptance or mobility or economic benefits that having these beauty standards will give you. But I do feel like the body horror in The Ugly Stepsister feels much more real and real life. I mean, the scenes where she's like getting the nose job or she's getting the eyelashes and they're sewing the eyelashes into her eye, I was just like, ugh. But I do think it really touches on just the absurdity of like the beauty industry and the way that women in particular will go through all of these trials and tribulations just to reach that like status of being pleasing to the male gaze. So I did enjoy the body horror aspect of the film and just watching as the stepsister is just completely like deteriorating in her quest of being beautiful. She just completely like deteriorates. We see a similar thing with The Substance. And oh my gosh, the thing with the tapeworms. If any of you have read Grady Hendrix, My Best Friend's Exorcism, you'll know there's a pretty like graphic scene with a tapeworm in that book. And the first time I read it, I was so horrified, and that scene has just like stuck itself in my brain. We get a very similar scene here in The Ugly Stepsister, and it was traumatizing. Right now I have that burned into my brain. The other thing that I really liked about this film is all of the female characters I thought were really interesting. Obviously, the protagonist of the stepsister, you start off feeling really bad for her. Like, you can see right from the beginning like how enamored she is with this idea of like living in a castle and being married to a prince. It's hard to not have some kind of empathy for her and to feel bad for her. I thought the other sister was really interesting, right? That you have a sister that is very much seeing the damage that this kind of societal expectations is doing to both her mother and her sister, and is choosing to step away from that, and her coming in at the end and being the hero. If anything, I wish we had gotten a little bit more of her character and kind of what she was like thinking and feeling throughout all of this. Even the two like female like dance instructors that were in a relationship, they have no interest in men, and yet they're also participating in this system of training girls to be appeasing to men and to that male gaze. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I also loved that the character of Cinderella was not, you know, this like prim, proper, oh, poor me kind of girl. That scene when she's crying over the rotting corpse of her dead father, and her mother comes and is like, oh, you know, go to the ball, everything will work out. And then you have the maggots that start sewing her dress for her. That was beautiful. I loved that. I laughed so hard. In some ways, it's like they get the ending they all want, but like it's not a good ending. They're still within this very like toxic patriarchal system. So I liked that element of it as well, that it wasn't a clean ending. No one was necessarily really the bad guy here. They were all just women that were trying to do the best that they could within the system that was created for them. Overall, I thought it was just a really fun retelling of that story. The next Shudder original that I watched is Dangerous Animals. I remember seeing the trailers for it and not being that interested in the film. To me, it just felt like a kind of run-of-the-mill young beautiful friends are going to go on this boat and then there's going to be this like psycho that's after them. But I was pleasantly surprised by this film and how much fun I had with it. I loved Jay Courtney in this film. He is so much fun. He was so charismatic. He's definitely carrying a lot of the film. I think he does a really great job of like creating this character that obviously has trauma from this incident that happened to him as a kid where he did get attacked by a shark, and instead of, you know, trying to deal with that in a healthy way, he just turns psycho and tries to become like the shark, tries to become a predator. And then to see him try to like create these methods and try to become this ultimate predator and try to, it felt like, take back some control that maybe he thought he lost during the shark attack. It was really fun to see the way that he was creating this character and all the different like quirks that they were giving him. Everything from him needing to use like an old-fashioned video camera to film him killing these people. The thing where he like cuts their hair, like his victim's hair, and then he pastes it within the VHS tapes. That was super creepy. I kept going back and forth while watching it of like, on the one hand, really wanting to see him get his comeuppance and get just violently attacked by a shark, while on the other hand, kind of wanting him to live and survive. And, you know, eventually he does get attacked by the shark, a really bad looking CGI shark. Like, for the most part, everything in the film looked pretty good except for that one moment. As far as like the other two characters go, like the main girl, kind of a bland character, very stereotypical, very much like,
I'm cool surfer chick and I'm cold with other people because I had a traumatic childhood and only the waves can truly understand me and I live in a van.
and then her like boyfriend character that goes after her, I mean, he has even less characterization, son of rich family. So the other characters compared to Jay Courtney are a bit like nothing burgers. What I think works about the film and what I think makes it so fun is this like cat and mouse game that you're having with Jay Courtney's character and the main protagonist. By the time we get to the third act, it does start pushing the boundaries of believability a little bit. Clearly she's a threat. Like, why wouldn't you just kill her and get rid of her? As someone that can be a bit of a control freak, obviously not to the level of this character, you know, when something doesn't go quite as you planned it, it can often feel like things are just ruined. So I understand the psychology of the character. But yeah, I was surprised that there were times where I was watching it and she was like almost getting away and I was like, come on, like just get away, just find help. And yeah, it was a fun way to kill an hour and a half. And then speaking of animals and horror films, the last Shudder film that I watched is Good Boy. We've got a paper thin plot here. Very straightforward. It does leave like some mystery as to what's going on. You have a protagonist that is sick, but there's also some strange history with his family. And there's questions around like, is this family cursed? There's something with the grandfather. Like, did the grandfather summon some kind of like demonic creatures? And the dog sees all of these weird, like shadowy creatures that are showing up. This dog, like, really is one of the best working actors. I mean, I've been on film sets and I've worked with actors, and this dog was able to emote more with its eyes and its facial expressions than a lot of human actors that I've seen. Like, it was amazing just to watch this dog act. I don't know if it was just like me emoting and projecting onto the dog, but I swear, like, there were moments where you could genuinely feel fear and you could genuinely feel sadness. It was all within like the eyes, it was all within the way the dog was looking, how it was reacting to things. So it's hard not to give this movie a 10 out of 10 just because of the adorable dog. As a lifelong dog lover, like this one just definitely got me like right in the feels. I did appreciate that it didn't go the super hokey route and be like, yeah, it's demons. The dog's gonna scare away the demons and save the human at the end. I guess I personally read like the creatures as like these shadowy entities of death that are coming for him. For me, I like took it as a story of that this dog is sensing that something is wrong with its human, but it's not actually not able to save its owner. And I liked that they kept the owner's face like kind of in the shadows. Like we don't really get to see him until that like final moment. I walked away from this movie actually feeling like a little depressed. Like it kind of depressed me for the rest of the day. But the other thing that I thought worked really well here was just the atmosphere. Like I loved that woods location that they were filming at. It felt very like creepy and eerie. It felt very like perfect for the fall time. And yeah, I'm in full support of the campaign to get this dog an Oscar. All right, so that is it for the Shudder originals. Let's move on to some TV shows. We'll talk Alien Earth first. Now, Alien Earth, when I saw the first 2 episodes of it, admittedly, like I liked it a lot. I actually liked it more than I thought I was going to. When I first heard they were going to do an Alien series, my biggest fear was like, that's likely going to get really expensive really quickly, especially with all of the special effects work that needs to go into this property. So I went into it thinking that like we're likely going to get more scenes with like the humans and the robots, and maybe we'll get glimpses of creatures and the xenomorph like here and there throughout the series. They'll save it for like big moments like the climax or the finale. And so I was pleasantly surprised that within the first 2 episodes, and really throughout the whole series, you do get a good amount of scenes with the xenomorph and with the various different creatures. It was also a lot more gory than I thought it was going to do. I thought some of the gore effects, especially within those first 2 episodes, were really well done. I would say probably my favorite episode was episode 5. I know this was a favorite for a lot of people. And yeah, it just had that like classic alien feel to it. I remember even when they were showing like flashbacks of the spaceship before it crashes to Earth in the first episode, and it just looked so much like the set design of the first Alien movie. And then I was also really intrigued by this idea of the xenomorph and these other creatures coming to Earth and them being invasive species. I thought that was a really interesting lens to look at the alien creatures through. If anything, I wish they had done a little bit more with that. They kind of drop it after the first couple of episodes. I am always a sucker for eco horror. It's one of my favorite subgenres. It's a subgenre that I've done a lot of my research on, and I'm always interested in this dual fascination slash fear that we as humans have of both the natural world as well as technology. But here I thought it was interesting that you're seeing these like AI, the souls of children that have been put into robots who are then interacting with these alien creatures and figuring out ways to communicate with them. At least the main girl, Wendy, figuring out a way to communicate with them and them coming together to fight the humans that are oppressing them. That hit my sweet spot for me. I was like, okay, cool. I'm liking this. I'm with it. If anything, I wish that, when we're seeing Wendy communicating with the xenomorph, part of me was like, what is it saying? As humans, we probably wouldn't be able to understand like the complex thinking of a creature like that, but I was thinking that, maybe Wendy would be like the translator, which I feel like is kind of my main problem with this series by the time we get to the end. I just felt like the writing wasn't like quite at the same level as it was earlier in the season. And I felt like there were a lot of things that they were setting up, but then didn't pay off. Like the whole thing with the boy genius, the like Elon Musk type character, they set up like this whole thing with him, and like one of the first few episodes where he's like,
I'm such a genius and I'm so bored of talking with humans. Like I can't have interesting conversations with humans. Like I can't have interesting conversations with anybody. Like that's all I'm craving is to have an interesting conversation, blah, blah, blah.
And then these alien creatures come and you get the weird like eyeball creature who he becomes fascinated with, and he wants to like know like what it's thinking and all this stuff. And I thought it was leading to a scenario where he was actually going to implant the alien like within himself. if anything, just to have the experience of it and to understand like a different way of thinking and a different way of understanding the world, since he says he's so bored of the normal human existence. I mean, I understand like why he didn't do it. We don't even really see him experimenting with that within another human. Like, okay, let me put this alien creature in another human and try to interact with it. I mean, we get it like a little bit. It just kind of felt like that creature got defeated really easily. I felt like all the humans got defeated really easily. It felt like all the humans by the last episode got really dumb all of a sudden. You're supposed to tell me this like genius tech billionaire can't figure out how to turn his system back on, his tracking system back on, to track where his like robot children have gone. Like, oh, one of our workers shut off the tracking system and now we don't know where they are. You really don't have a way to turn that system back on. You're the one that created it. So it was just weird plot conveniences like that that made the finale feel not that climatic or that interesting, or really making me wonder what's going to happen in season 2. I do believe it got renewed for season 2, so I guess we'll see where it goes. So the other TV show that I've been watching is, of course, Welcome to Derry. I feel like with Welcome to Derry, I had the opposite experience as what I had with Alien Earth, where I was not really liking the series for the first 3 episodes, but then I was absolutely in love with it by the end of the series. I would say my biggest problem with the first couple episodes of Welcome to Derry, it was really like the CGI. The first episode, when it begins, and we're seeing the pregnant mother who starts going into labor, and they're just getting all up in there and showing us everything, and I was like, here we go, we're on HBO. And then out comes this like CGI demon baby that starts flying around, and I was like, oh, I don't know why the CGI in the first couple episodes felt so jarring and not well done compared to what we see later in the series. And I know some people online were saying that the CGI was kind of giving them Goosebumps vibes. I definitely felt that as well. Back in October, when AMC was doing their Fear Fest, there was a day where they showed the original It miniseries and then the 2017 film back to back. What stood out to me seeing them back to back is just how much I preferred the practical effects of the miniseries. And to me, there's something more unsettling about just seeing a girl in her bathroom and her sink gets filled with blood. That feels creepier than having, a lot of CGI blood just like spilling out everywhere. It's covering the whole room and everything turns red. Like, that just isn't scary for me. I know it doesn't bother some people. I would say by like episode 4 and 5, when it's starting to get more into the lore of the books and we're starting to see the beginning of like the Black Spot, for example, and we are starting to see Pennywise pop up and, the addition of Bill Skarsgård. That's when I started enjoying the series like so much more. But yeah, once we had Bill Skarsgård and Pennywise come back, he is just so good. I really enjoyed seeing like the backstory that they built with his character and who he was, who this guy was, who Pennywise was before this like alien creature invades his body. I did really enjoy the kid actors here. I feel like with both the films and now this miniseries, like Andy Muschietti does a really great job of picking kids that you just feel for immediately. Like, you just have a sense of empathy towards them. My favorite characters were Marge and Rich. I just thought they were so cute, and I was devastated when they killed Rich off. That was so sad. I really loved the finale because it had that like feeling that you get, at least that I get, when I'm like watching the original miniseries or I'm reading the book, and just this sense of friendship. I am always a sucker for a good light versus darkness story. And I also really loved Halloran. I did love that they were able to include Halloran in this and have that connection to The Shining. It was so fun to get more of the backstory. I had a total like fangirl moment in the finale when he said that he was going to go work at the hotel, and he makes the comment of like, oh, how much trouble can a hotel be? I'm also curious because they set it up in the finale that like Pennywise has this ability to move through time in a weird way. Like, is it going to be a thing where we see Pennywise go back in time to try to stop like a group of children or people, ancestors of the kids that we see in this first series and even the kids in the 80s? If he can find a way to stop them, then like how does that change the series? Are we gonna, possibly get like an alternative version of events of the 1980s or alternative versions of what we just saw happen in this series. I don't know how they're going to play with time, but it feels like it's going to be a significant part. But I'm happy to say that overall I ended up really enjoying Welcome to Derry, and I'm excited to see where they go next. All right, let's go back to some films. Other films that I saw recently are Him. Had an interesting premise, but ultimately ended up being kind of forgettable. There was so much they could have explored within this premise. I just felt like they did the very typical thing of like, okay, it's a mentor and a mentee story, and the mentor is jealous of his mentee because he doesn't want to get old and he doesn't want to lose his former glory. But again, I just feel like the story doesn't really like go anywhere that interesting or really asks any interesting questions about sports and the sports industry. I do think it touches on important aspects, especially this idea around being an avenue for young men who maybe come from lower class backgrounds, how the sports industry can offer an invitation to be a better way of life. So I think the film, like, it touches on that, but it doesn't really go that deep with it. It goes the very surface level route. Okay, here's all these old white people being like weird and crazy and doing like devil sacrifices or whatever. I guess if you were going to go that route, I would have liked them to be more involved in the story than them just showing up at the very end. At the very end, it feels like it's trying to have this very cathartic moment for our protagonist. These guys weren't really that involved in the story. I know, it just felt kind of off. And again, I'm like, the franchise owners is only one aspect of the sports industry. Other aspects I would have been interested in seeing is like the relationship between team members. Like, are the team members also involved in all these kind of weird satanic like rituals? What are the role of the coaches or even the roles of the fans themselves? They have a little bit of like the fan behavior in the film. It's more about like this hero worship of one particular individual rather than the fans that willingly participate within this like economic ecosystem of sports, and how they participate in this like relationship between the players and the owners of the franchises, how they play into expectations that like franchise owners have for their team. I just feel like there was so much on like a psychological level that could have been explored more. I do think there were some like creepy moments throughout that scene when he's in the sauna and you have one of the crazy fans that just pops out. Like, moments like that were pretty eerie. And I love Marlon Wayans. It was fun to get to see him in a more like serious, menacing role. I think he's definitely the best part of this movie. I think he was definitely carrying a lot of the scenes in this film. I don't think it was bad. I just think it was kind of bland. It was very forgettable. Speaking of forgettable, I guess now would be a good time to talk about Shelby Oaks. I feel like Shelby Oaks is a good example of just because you can critique a movie and you can objectively look at a film and talk about like why it works, like why the narrative works. That doesn't mean that those skills automatically get transferred over when you try to make a film yourself. And look, as someone that is also a filmmaker, as someone that also writes films in addition to talking about them, I've experienced this firsthand. My first couple drafts of anything that I write are like utter trash. It's actually really hard to write a good story, even though there's a part of your brain that understands what it takes to have a story be good. When you're just writing a story, when you're figuring out for the first time, it's really easy to just rely on like the cliches. It's really easy to rely on easy writing that gets your characters from point A to point B without a lot of conflict. For the first couple of drafts, you're trying to figure out what the story is, like where it's going, who your characters are, what they're trying to say to you. And then the goal being that as you keep working on the story, as you keep working on draft, those like problem areas will fix themselves. You'll come up with more clever ways for your characters to find out information. And the weird thing about Shelby Oaks is that it feels like it never got to that like later draft. There's not a lot here in terms of narrative or character development. I feel like all those problems I just mentioned of characters finding out information too easily and there not being a lot of obstacles in their way and them not really learning anything by the time they get to the end of the film. Like, I feel like Shelby Oaks has all of those problems. I went into this film thinking it was all going to be found footage. I was with the film for like the first 20 minutes when it's like the faux documentary and it's kind of playing out like an episode of some true crime TV show. I was like, okay, that's kind of like interesting. I don't know how they're going to keep this format for a feature-length film, but I'm interested. Let's see where it goes. And I feel like some of the more creepier moments of the film happen within that documentary. She's in the cabin and you can hear like weird noises outside. It's all dark. You can see like shadowy figures passing by the window. Probably after the 20-minute mark is when it stops being a found footage type film and just turns into a regular film. And that is when I lost interest. It was just a very bland story. Like, okay, the guy shows up to the sister's house, he shoots himself. She sees the video of the sister and her friends, the paranormal paranoids, which and then she starts gathering all these clues and goes on this adventure to find her sister. She's going on this journey, and there's really no obstacles in her way. Like, she's finding out all of this information. She's like, okay, let me go talk to this cop. And he just gives her all the information that she needs. And then it's like, okay, let me go to this like prison. And oh, I'm going to find another clue there. And then let me go to the woods. And oh, I'm going to stumble upon this like home. It was just kind of boring to watch because, again, there weren't really any obstacles. And any obstacles that show up, like the weird hellhounds, for example, they don't do anything. And you don't really learn anything about the sister as a character as she's going on this journey. When she meets the like old woman in the woods and she goes into her house, and there just happens to be a photo album on the table, and the sister's looking through the photo album, and all of the photos are of her missing sister and these two old people and all these weird like satanic rituals that they were doing. Like, every photo is documenting exactly what happened here, and I just started laughing. How convenient of you that you just had this photo album out on this table. And it's like, sure, you can make the argument that like, well, they knew she was coming. This whole thing was a setup for the sister to like come and get the baby. Like, even the big battle at the end when she's trying to take her sister out of the old woman's house and back home, like, it was very anticlimactic. Like, nothing happened. I don't know if I have this right. Like, it was really hard for me to pay attention to this movie. I kept like drifting in and out because it just was not keeping my interest. But my understanding is that at the end of the film, it's revealed that the weird devil entity creature actually wasn't after the missing sister. Like, he wanted the protagonist sister the whole time, which I was like, well, this seems like a very convoluted plot to like get what what you want. I don't know what the hellhounds were supposed to do with it. I don't know what their role was. I like Chris Stuckman as a YouTuber. I followed him for many years, and sure, like, it's hard to make a film. Does that mean that we shouldn't be critiquing them? No, I don't believe in that either. I don't know, I'm still baffled as to what it was about this that Neon wanted to take on. I guess maybe they figured they would make their money back because there was a lot of interest in the movie. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this one. Sorry, Chris Stuckman. Okay, let's talk about a movie that I actually liked a lot, and that is The Long Walk. I loved this movie so much. I think this is one of the better Stephen King adaptations. I know some people were disappointed that the film changed the ending and that there was some stuff that was left out, but I loved this movie. It's like top 5 for me of all of like 2025. I feel like the challenge for this film is that you're having like almost 2 hours of characters that are just doing this walk and talking with each other and building these relationships. And it's like, how do you keep something like that interesting for the runtime of a film? Probably by like the hour, 30-minute mark, you could start feeling the length of the movie a little bit. I don't know if it needed to be as long as it was. I mean, I do think the length added to the overall kind of immersive experience that this film gives you. I'm super bummed that I missed seeing it in the theaters because like, I can only imagine what the experience would have been seeing it on a big screen. I had to watch it on my laptop, and even in that, like, it still like pulled me right into it. I still felt very anxious and like claustrophobic while watching it. Even though the characters were in this open environment, there was just a sense of dread right from the very beginning that gave this very like closed and claustrophobic feeling. So I think that worked really well for the film. Obviously, the relationships between the characters, especially the friendship between Raymond and Peter, like, that's what makes the film right there. And those actors were so good. Like, all of the actors in here, I felt, did a really great job, gave a really great performance. There were so many times in this movie where I started crying. I got teared up. I was not expecting that going into the film. Characters that I didn't think I would care about, by the time we get to like their death scene, like, tears. And I think the other thing that this film does really well from a screenwriting perspective, every single scene in this film is giving you something new about either the characters or about the world that they are living in. And that's what keeps it interesting throughout. Every single scene, as this journey keeps going on, you are getting deeper into the psychology of these characters. Despite the very monotonous way that the story is being told, it's always giving you something new. And every new scene, you're like learning something new about these characters. Yes, we get a few of like the flashbacks that are done through like dream sequences. Never my favorite form of storytelling, but I understand why they had to do it. And again, a sucker for finding hope in the darkness. When I was watching it and you're having the moment where Peter is talking to Raymond and being like, look at all this like beauty in the world. Like, yes, we're in a horrible situation, but look at the beauty of nature that's around us. I feel like it was like that moment that I was like, I think they're gonna make him the winner. And they did. And I know that some people don't like it because they changed the book, but I felt like it actually worked really well for the film. I also like that you have like Mark Hamill here, and also just like what a hypocrite that character is. Obviously, there's an anti-war message here. I know that Stephen King like wrote the book, I think in the late 60s. So you can definitely feel the like Vietnam inspirations like throughout it. But I also think like it can be read as a metaphor for capitalism as well. That, you know, we're all just kind of on this long walk of life. We're all on this hamster wheel, trying very hard not to get left behind because bad things happen when you do. But yeah, but at the end of the day, also kind of having this feeling of like, what is this all for? They say the long walk is optional for men, but no one's ever refused it. It's this kind of unspoken rule that like you will participate in this, and no one's questioning like why are we participating in this system that is harming us, which also feels very relevant to current conversations around our capitalist system and our culture around it. So I also think that's another strong point of the film, is that you can read it as a metaphor for various different things. But for me, it just like hit all the marks, right? It had strong thematic points, it had great characters, you're learning something new about the world throughout every scene, strong story structure. And I feel like it's kind of like body horror in a way. The thought of having to like do this and not being able to ever use the bathroom, or having to do this walking while you're sick and not feeling well, like I feel like those moments were also very visceral. And again, I was like crying at the end of it. For me, a highlight of the year. So that leads us to the final film that I saw. I feel like I've been talking for so long now, which is the Silent Night Deadly Night remake. We love a Christmas horror film. This was the first horror film in months that I got to go to a theater and see, and it felt so nice to be back. I didn't go to this because I particularly wanted to see another remake of Silent Night Deadly Night. I was mostly here just for Corey Cunningham, for my fellow Halloween Ends lovers. You know what I'm talking about. No, but Rowan Campbell was actually really good in this film. It was definitely fun to see him kicking ass of bad guys. That whole scene of him dressed as Santa and killing all those Nazis in the bar, like that is pure B movie gold right there. And I did appreciate that the film tried to tell the story in a different direction. They were trying to do something new with it. I didn't quite like all of the decisions that they went with, but I appreciate that they were at least trying something new. And I thought the angle of having Billy go after like genuinely bad people, like having this like sense within him of who is a genuinely bad person, like it was a little like Dexter-ish. But for the most part, I was like, okay, this is fun. Also, I loved that little like Christmas shop that he works at. Growing up in a small New England town that had little shops like that, I love them so much. One of my dreams one day is to like own one of those shops. Probably not make like any kind of money on it, but you know, I'd be happy. And yeah, like overall it was a fun film. Relationship between him and the main girl, and trying to like act like a normal person, but also having this like voice inside his head like literally telling him like, hey, you need to like kill people. Oh, I loved his little like advent calendar when he like kills someone and then he like takes their blood and puts it within his little advent calendar. I thought that was cute. For me, like the film kind of fell apart within the third act. We get a big exposition dump in the third act, which, you know, is never my favorite. It's like we get the exposition dump with all the flashbacks that are happening, and it's like we're trying to cram everything about this character and their backstory within like these few minutes. And it was kind of a bummer because they used the iconic kill from the first film, the Linnea Quigley kill where she is put on the antlers of the mounted deer. They used that kill for the flashback. I just wish that they had saved it for a more like epic moment. I get it's a moment of revenge, but again, because it's happening within a flashback and it's happening so quickly, I just don't think that moment gets the like gravitas that it deserved. And then I felt like the whole subplot with the child kidnapper, it just made the film a bit overstuffed. I feel like I understand they needed a big bad villain to go after at the end, but again, it was kind of one of those like choppy storytelling things, but there's not a lot of like development with that. There's not a lot of development with that character either. And then my only other thing, and this is a personal thing on my part, but I'm not always a fan of like the supernatural elements in my slasher films. That felt a little bit like too close to like Halloween Ends, because wasn't that kind of similar where it's like Corey Cunningham meets up with Michael Myers and then somehow like gets all of his like power and urge to kill. I mean, this one was certainly better than that like 2012 remake that we got, but I do think, going back to what I was talking about earlier, of just kind of missing like simplicity in horror films, and especially in slasher films, that's kind of what I appreciated about the original Silent Night Deadly Night. I went back and rewatched that before seeing this new version, and I mean, yeah, it's not a great film by any means. It's a very like cheesy B movie, but what I liked about it was like those moments where you have characters that are just going about their everyday lives. You have two friends that are sledding in the night, and suddenly someone like comes out of the shadows and decapitates one of them. It's like these characters that are going about like the everyday lives and doing like the very simple everyday things, and then are getting like killed within that I find more scarier than something that's like supernatural or otherworldly. I'm like still craving like a genuine, just simple like slasher movie. Maybe we'll get something like that in 2026. Or if there's a film that's like that that's out there that I just haven't seen yet, let me know. So that is it for all of the horror films that I have been watching the past couple of weeks. Again, let me know in the comments what you've been enjoying the past couple of months. What are you looking forward to coming out in 2026? And I will see you next time. Thank you for watching this video. I'm super excited to be back. I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe rest of the holiday season, and I will see you next time.